Right, we are going to go ahead and get started, and then we'll start with introductions, and then we'll go on to our guest speaker. Good morning, everyone. I am Diana Batista, chair of this committee. I am with Stanford Children's Health, and we're just going to go ahead and I'm going to pick boxes, so get ready to unmute yourselves. And I'm going off of what I'm reading on your screen, so if you want to change your name, do it now. Okay, ready? Michael Murphy.
I am Michael Murphy. As she said, I'm a Rolfer. My office is in the Clock Tower building in Loyola Corners.
Joe.
Good morning, Joe Maletti. I'm with Abbott Bank and Los Altos resident and also on the board of the chamber.
Scott.
Scott O'Brien, Cushman and Wakefield Commercial Real Estate, and I'm a former chamber board member and former chair of the chamber board.
Kim.
Kim Cranston. Which Kim?
Two Kims and two Scotts.
You go, Kim.
That's all right, Kim. Be my guest.
Kim Cranston, Los Altos Property Owners Downtown, Los Altos Forward, Los Altos Community Coalition. Now you, Kim. Huh.
And Kim Mosley, president of the Los Altos Chamber. Good morning.
Abby.
Good morning. It's Trouble coming to you from Ashante Hotel.
Dennis.
Good morning. I'm Dennis Young. I'm the current chair of the board and co-publisher of the Los Altos Town Crier. And in the middle of tax season.
Oh, I did mine last month. I'm very proud of myself.
Oh, be proud.
Diana.
Scott Hunter.
Good morning, Scott Hunter. I'm the executive director of the Los Altos Village Association. If we're listing other things, I'm also a board member of the Los Altos Stage Company and a member of the New Theater Working Group.
Cameron.
Cameron Knight Desmond, Knight and Company CPAs, also in the middle of tax season, past chair, past board, past lava board. Glad to be here.
Cameron, it's better to be a has-been than a never was.
Thank you, Dennis. Don't we both know?
Don't we both?
That's a quote. Roy.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Roy Lave. I'm a beachcomber.
Love it. Mimi.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mimi Lee, and I'm the owner of Curves in Los Altos, which is a fitness studio for women. And I've been a chamber member since 2007, and this is my first year to be on the board of directors. Super excited.
Thank you. Sonia.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to meet you all. I see some familiar faces. My name is Sonia, and I am the City of Los Altos' Public Information Officer. I am here today with Laura, who's probably already introduced herself.
Nope. I save our speakers for last. So, but thank you for being here. Beth.
Oh, good morning, everyone. I'm the Executive Director of Redwood Pacific Management in downtown Los Altos, and I'm also the treasurer of the Lava Board. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you. Julia. Julia?
Hi. Oh, hi. Yeah. I'm Julia Su. Sorry, just sent my daughter to school, so I haven't washed myself yet. I heard my neighbor. I'm the resident of Los Altos, and I heard my neighbor send us a email. Might concern of kind of the a area where kind of along our street. So I'm kind of interested to see what would happen.
Well, thank you for being here. Okay. And Anthony.
I was hoping I'd miss introduction. Sorry, everyone. I'm here on baby leave, economic development administrator for the city of Los Altos, but I wanted to be here to support Laura. So thanks, guys.
Thank you. Did I miss anybody? Okay, awesome.
Wait, I want to hear baby leave. Did I hear Anthony correct?
Yeah, he's here. Let's turn on our video really quick. Sorry, Laura. Cal, can you say hi? Can you say hi?
Now the baby's famous. Okay. Without further ado, Laura, would love to have you introduce yourself. Laura is our interim community development with the city of Los Altos. If Kim, can you put Roy on mute? She'll be talking to us about the Los Altos housing element overview and update. Just so you know that the housing element is one of the required elements of the city's general plan and is intended to provide a comprehensive strategy for promoting the production of safe, decent, and affordable housing within the community. Every 8 years, cities must update their housing element and have it approved by the state. Easy task, I'm sure. So without further ado, Laura, the Zoom is yours. Oh, I'm sorry, Scott, did I miss you?
Yes, I think there's another Scott.
You had a hand raised, so okay. All right, Laura, there you go.
Sorry about that. No, I don't. I introduced myself.
Okay, nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I recognize some of you from some of the other meetings that we've had, some small group meetings on the housing element, so and also community workshops. So, so I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to go over a little bit about the housing element and where we are in the process in Los Altos. We have some changes in the schedule. So I'll bring you up to date on what the schedule looks like going forward. And some of you may have been at the March 22nd council meeting that went very late in the evening. So they didn't get to kind of provide the feedback on the housing element that we were kind of hoping for. So I think we are going to move ahead on a new date with a joint planning commission and city council meeting on April 26th, which will be at about 5 p.m. The date will be published, but I just wanted to let you know that that's the meeting where we will get some further input. So today I'll go over the elements, the components of the housing element, and also talk about some of the policy choices that we're asking council to give direction on. Okay, so I will share my screen. And I will get started here with, okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, okay, great. I'm gonna start and I'll go through some of this a little more quickly because I know some of you have the background, but I'll go through it kind of quickly so we have some time for questions at the end. As many of you know, that the required section of the general plan, the city's general plan, is the housing element, where we look at housing needs and housing conditions in the city, and we look at projected housing unit demand, where we can accommodate that demand. And we also set, which is a very important part of the housing element, the goals, policies, and programs to help us meet these objectives. Now, this timeline has changed a bit, so I wanted to mention a couple changes. We had anticipated that the public draft of the housing element would be out in April, but that has shifted a little bit because we are getting the feedback in April from the council that will impact the draft of the housing element. So at this point, what we anticipate is based on that feedback in April, that our consultant, Lisa Wise Consulting, will be modifying the plan and modifying the housing element and providing the draft to the public in May, towards the end of May, beginning of June. So it's looking like it's going to come out now in June. So that's kind of what we're anticipating. What Sonia and Anthony have been involved in are small group meetings. Planners also have been involved in pop-up events, community workshops, study sessions, and public hearings. And we've done many many types of outreach, including mailers, emails, letters, and newsletters and newspaper ads. So as I mentioned, these are the components of the housing element. And the key component that we're looking at now is the adequate sites inventory. And that's a key component that people have been focusing in on. So this is the area where we're looking for some feedback from council, and we've been getting feedback, good feedback from the community in terms of developers, residents, and many of the groups that you are all part of. So our total RENA allocation, which is our amount of housing units that the state through ABAG, the Association of Bay Area Governments, has allocated for the city is 1,958 units. This is what we have to plan for. That's the number. And I'll talk in a minute, but we try to plan for more than that number with a buffer for a number of reasons. But out of that 1,958, 843 are considered market rate or above moderate, 501 are very low, 288 low, and 326 are considered to be affordable to moderate. And I'll talk in a minute about what that actually means in terms of the housing element. So we ran the sites that we looked at here through the site inventory analysis. And we included accessory dwelling units because they can be counted as affordable. We looked at projects that were in the process, in the pipeline, and we looked at the capacity of sites based on their current zoning. And we particularly looked at sites that were vacant or underutilized, so not developed intensively. Some of the criteria that we looked at were that the zoning allows residential, that it's not a pipeline project site. And these are some of the criteria, and that there is a vacant improvement land value ratio of less than 1, meaning underutilized, and the existing use does not preclude housing such as a gas station or something that would inhibit it to be developed as residential. So the sites had to be at least a half an acre or larger, and moderate income. So for to be counted as lower income, the site must be able to accommodate 30 dwelling units per acre or more. So that is where HCD, the state, allows us to count those as lower income units. It does not mean the city has to build the units or deed restrict the units. They're not deed restricted units. And so when you see a site that might be blue, meaning lower income, that does not mean that will be entirely developed with housing affordable to very low or low income. But that is what the state looks at as a proxy, basically a proxy for that. And then moderate income is at least 20 units per acre. And we projected, we're being conservative in our projections, and we projected 70% of maximum density for the site. And this is based on average density trends within the city. So we didn't look at it as 100% of maximum, but 70. So what we're coming up with through our consultants' analysis is what they're showing us is a shortfall of our RENA numbers. So we can get there with our sites without rezoning approximately 80%. And these are estimated numbers, but about 80% of our RENA can be accommodated through not rezoning. But with these policy discussions that we're going to have about rezoning with the council, we are estimating conservatively that we could add 500 to 700 units that would not only meet our RENA goals, but allow a bit of a buffer. And, there's no set buffer requirement in terms of whether 15% or 20% beyond our housing numbers. But to be safe, we're trying to get in the ballpark of 20%. And the reason we do that is so that we don't have to go back and change and amend and readopt our housing element during the next 8-year period, because this has to kind of basically last us for 8 years and show that we can, develop these units within that time frame. And if one site does not come in, we want another site to sort of pick up the slack and take that additional those additional units. So what we're asking the council for policy on is looking at these zoning districts. And Particularly, we're talking about the CT zone. And we estimate that if we allowed a higher density in the commercial thoroughfare district, we would be able to increase the capacity there by 50 to 130 units. And these are the purple areas that you see pointed out here. Oh, I'm sorry, the red areas, excuse me, red zoning. This is just an example of just an illustration of what that might mean in terms of if that were in effect. The 100% affordable project that we have at 330 Distal Circle, which is coming through the entitlement process, would be 90 units with a density of 100 units per acre and height of 64 feet. And that is allowed because there are concessions, development concessions and waivers that are afforded to affordable housing. Some of the other policy questions are, should we assume development on either city-owned or faith-based owned properties? Here are some church properties, and this would be if the churches may be interested, as in some cities they have been doing tiny homes or doing development for, you know, very low income, whether they would be interested in partnering with a developer to provide that on their property is one question. And then on city properties, we're looking at, do we want to rezone from public and community facilities to a residential? In the office administrative, and that's the purple zone here, we're looking at asking the question, can we allow residential in those areas? And we estimate that that would allow 150 to 250 additional units if we were to do that, if the council decided that. And this is kind of an example of what that might look like. 20 units, density 74 units per acre, height 35 feet. This is just kind of an illustration. Commercial retail sales, establishing a minimum density and allowing 3 stories or all residential in the CRS district, the commercial retail sales district, could afford us an additional 25 to 60 units. And then this is kind of an example of a mixed use project that could be considered what development might look like if that change were to occur. And then Loyola Corner specific plan currently has a cap, a very low cap on the number of, I think it's 20 housing units that can be built in that, under that plan. If the cap were removed and 3-story projects, 100% residential were allowed, there could be an additional 35 to 95 units that could be accommodated. And this is not a project that, you know, necessarily would get approved. It's just an example of something that did come in for review. And this kind of gives you the bigger picture of where these sites are at this point. So you can see, so the blue is lower income, and that just means they're dwelling, a density of 30 dwelling units per acre or more, and moderate is yellow, and above moderate is green. So this is, and then the hatched areas that you can see on the map are where we anticipate having a zoning change. So you can see some of the hatched areas there, cross-hatched. And then there's some retail areas in here as well. And there's some sites. And so we have definitely been hearing back on, there are definitely some sites that, you know, do have some constraints at this point. And so, so the constraints that we're seeing are, you know, they're going to be incorporated. So we've heard a lot from community, also developers, et cetera, that there are issues with some of the sites that are in there, and there is the opportunity to take those sites out. So what will happen is, we'll listen to the council and the planning commission on April 26th. We'll take their feedback, and whatever they tell us, that's going to impact those sites. So those sites, some of them will come out of there and they will be removed from the analysis. Once they're taken out, we'll have a new count of how many units can we accommodate. And that will be, you know, that will tell us where we are. Can we meet our 1958? Can we do a buffer? And that will be what we find out. And then when the public draft comes out in June, beginning of June, that will be another 30-day period where we can receive more input And we will use that input to take out sites or add sites, change the capacity. That will all happen after that 30-day comment period in June, so that by July, when we have community workshop meetings, public hearings, in those meetings, that information will be taken in and it will be reincorporated into the draft, which then will go up to state HCD. And at that point, when it goes up to state HCD, they will have it for about 3 months, and then they will give us their input before we bring it back for final adoption. And I will say that we have a very tight time frame because the state, requires us to get this fully approved and adopted by the end of next April. And there's, we're on a very kind of a, streamlined time frame, and we're trying to meet those numbers those deadlines, because if we don't meet those deadlines, it does have an impact. There are potential for fines and things, but the other issue is if we have to rezone any areas, we would have to do it within January of next year to December of next year, which is a very short time frame. If we meet our approval goal of next April, then we have 3 years, a 3-year period to do that rezoning, which would allow outreach and more input, and it would be a better process, we think, if we have that longer time frame. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. And thank you, Sonia and Anthony, for being here. They've been great at all the outreach, and we are continuing to do some further outreach with the business community, and asking for certain questions and information from the business community as well.
Thank you so much for that informative presentation. And I also want to welcome all the folks who joined us after the introduction. So thank you all for being here. Do we have any questions? Feel free to raise your hand. Laura, if I can start, one of the questions I hear from a lot of the pro-housing groups are all the cities have to do is zone for housing, but the building of the housing is what people want. But they don't seem to be doing that. I don't even know if you can answer that one regarding Los Altos, but that's one of the big questions I always hear when I'm hearing about RHNA numbers and zoning, but it's the building that we need.
That's right. I mean, in terms of the requirements of HCD are not that the city produce those units. Obviously, we work in partnership with private sector. So developers, are coming in, and we are seeing a steady stream in our pipeline of going through the entitlement process of mixed use or residential projects. So we do see that there will be housing units built in the future, and things that are entitled this current year, even though it's prior to the housing element cycle, they can be counted towards our housing element goals. So the state's not requiring the city to build it or even deed restrict units, but they do want to see progress, and we anticipate that we will be making progress based on the pipeline and the development trends that we're seeing.
Thank you.
I would mention one quick thing, particularly around accessory dwelling units. We've seen 100 accessory dwelling unit applications come in last year. This year already, we're a quarter of the way through the year. We've already had 50 ADU applications. So we're really moving ahead in that area, and all of those units can be counted as affordable.
I see Dennis first and then Kim.
Laura, I noticed one of the parcels marked was the open space at Grant and Fremont. Isn't that currently zoned parks?
It's zoned for public facilities. So it's not a designated park. So it's not considered a designated park. So that could be something that the city offers for development. That's a possibility.
Without a vote of?
Well, it would be required to be approved by city council.
Not by public?
No.
Okay.
A follow-up question to what was asked earlier in terms of what happens if the city doesn't produce. And I understand it's not the obligation of the city to actually build, but is there any kind of timeline that the production of housing needs to follow? So if, say, halfway through the period, no new housing has been produced, does that mean, is there any consequence of that?
There may be consequences. See, every year we submit in April to the state our annual progress report. So we just submitted the one for last year. So they do check, they do review those numbers to see, are you making any progress? So there would be concern from the state if we, submitted in the next couple of years and saw no new units being built. We don't anticipate that, but yes, the state would be monitoring. And in the past, they have not monitored as closely, but going forward, their enforcement branch is much stronger now. They're really focused on results, right? So there could potentially be fines or other consequences because they are monitoring it.
Thank you.
Roy, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. So some of the sites, or many of the sites, will be in private property. Do we anticipate rezoning those with or without the permission of the owners?
Well, yes, that's the question we're asking council. If council says, okay, we would like to rezone some of these areas, which obviously, yes, they're private owners. As part of that rezoning process, yes, every property owner in that zoning district will be notified, and they can come to public hearings. They can tell council what their thoughts are. Some have already expressed support for changes. Some owners or developers have expressed support. If you increase the density, I mean, there's of course factors, the factor in around the value of the property. And so that has been supported in some cases. In other cases, residents nearby do not support it because if they're worried about the intensification of development, that has been a question. So, but just to answer your question, during the rezoning, every every property owner is notified and will have the opportunity to give input.
Questions, comments?
I have a question. This is Scott. I saw that you had the, Sherwood specific plan was on, I think, that last slide. I mean, is there any thought in the changing of that zoning? Because I know it's already got an overlay on it, but are they looking at that? It didn't seem like that was one that was up for potential change.
We will add that if it's not in there. We can add it because I think I've heard that comment come in that it could be looked at. Yeah.
It seems like it where it's located at El Camino in San Antonio, and away from a lot of other residential, that it would be a
good site. Yes,
Mhm.
We've definitely heard from a number of variety of people that would be a good site to add. So these are changes that the consultant can make in the sites analysis.
Okay, thank you.
And for everyone that is on the chat box, Laura was Sonia was kind enough to put the questionnaire that Laura was referring to. Julia, you have your hand raised.
Oh, yes. Can you hear me? Okay,
Yeah.
good. Yeah. I have I want to know what's a parcel. There is two parcels along El Camino and Woodstock, which is where I live, along Woodstock. I want to know, what's your do you have any kind of decision to that too? I heard you might sell it to someone.
Sorry, which
El Camino and Woodstock.
In Woodstock?
Yeah, the corner, there are two parcels.
Okay, I don't know specifically what the plan is for those. Your question is whether they're going
What's the
develop?
plan for? Yeah. Are you going to sell it to a development or just to keep it there?
There's no plans at this point to sell for development at this point. The city could, just as an example, if the city council chose to make the policy of making like a parking area, a parking lot open for development, then there would be a process for the sale of that there would be a request for proposals, and that there's a whole process that would have to be gone through if the city decided there was a city-owned site that they would develop. So that one, I don't know the specifics on your site, sorry.
Oh, okay. So you don't know who owned that, right? The city owned that.
I'm not sure on that site. Maybe I can follow up afterwards. You could email me and I can check on that one.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
So I know that thankfully I think we've progressed since then, but I know the biggest concern was the panic when people heard low income. And just to kind of put that into, I mean, I don't know, the 2020 numbers was in Santa Clara County, the area median income was like $141,000. So 50% of that, I think, is the low income. That's still a lot.
Right.
I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at. So, but we definitely need housing at all levels, and it's just, it's tough in California.
Yeah, it's been in the news just today and recently, about the income levels even in the Bay Area. In the middle income, it's very hard to afford a house, so that's definitely a concern. Through our inclusionary program, when we do have new ownership projects that come on, we do require 15% to be affordable, either to moderate or low. So we are getting new units when developments occur that are designated for moderate and low. And a lot of developers take advantage of the density bonus laws, which allow them to get additional height or other development concessions if they provide affordable housing, either above and beyond the inclusionary. So development trends have been to include that.
Thank you. Looking around for any questions or comments. Oh, okay. I saw Dennis first and then Robert.
I was just going to say, reading your town crier today, there's an article on the front page about First Street condominiums and more.
Robert.
Yep. Out of curiosity, is there any county-owned land in the city that is potentially on the list for rezoning?
I am not aware of any county-owned land, no, on the list. I know we've partnered with the county on the 330 Distal project. That's a partnership, but I'm not aware of any other county property at this time.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, Barb is here from Alon Realtor, so I think she's pro. I'm just kidding, Barb. Anybody else, questions or comments from the group? Well, this was really informative. Laura, thank you so much. I would encourage everyone to fill out the questionnaire. It's so important for feedback to be given regarding these kind of projects and general, anything that has to do with general plan.
Yes, thank you. And I would say keep an eye out for the April 26th meeting of Planning Commission and Council. That will be the next one that will be, very instructive in terms of how the draft will come out. And then we'll have another community workshop, as I mentioned it will likely be in June, I think, and some other public hearings as well.
Great. All right. Well, Kim Mosley.
Just wanted to thank you, Laura. You've been doing such a great job of managing a very complex process here in our community, and you're always so professional and thorough in your presentation. So I appreciate that. And just wanted to say, please feel free to come back at any time along the way, throughout this process. We welcome you back and appreciate the opportunity to have that direct access to have conversations and ask you questions. So thank you.
Sure, thank you. And thank you for having me.
Certainly. I did notice in your presentation, there's, what is it, losaltoshousing.org? Is that the email address to get updates?
That's the website address. And Sonia, maybe you can mention, but that's where we have all of the information. Yes, I should say any information you might want to look up is frequently asked questions and responses to those. It gives upcoming meeting dates. So that's always, we're trying to always keep that up to date, and lots of information about the past meetings that we've had as well.
Wonderful. I just had a couple of chamber updates that I could share here briefly, Diana, and then I'll turn back to you. You know, we're working on the Los Altos magazine. So if you haven't engaged with us and made plans to advertise or participate in that, please give our office a call so we can work with you on that. I have a bit of information to share with you. It's been a few years since we've been able to meet in person, let alone travel anywhere. And so the chamber has been working with an agency to plan a trip abroad for the fall. And we're just in the final stages of that, but wanted to put it on your radar in case it's something that you might like to block off on your calendar and make plans to attend. We are planning a trip to Dubai, and that would be a week-long trip that would begin the 4th of October. So we would love to have you go with us to Dubai. It more than just a trip of leisure. This is also going to be an opportunity for us to connect with the Dubai Chamber of Commerce and their trade commission as well. So we will be able to really look deeper into the community itself and look at how business has drastically changed there from the souks to the modern tech hub that it is globally today. So please take a look at that. If you are interested, send me an email. We don't have all of the details hammered out yet, but if I know that you're interested, I can make sure that you continue to receive that information. So, and that's all I have.
All right, are there any announcements from the group? Then I give you back the gift of time. So I will see you all next month. Thank you all so much for being with us today. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you, Diana. Thanks, everyone.